And there, feel free to, show your face. It's often nice to teach, to see people's faces and see how things are going. If there's lots of looks of confusion, we know to slow down. And yeah, I am very excited today to welcome you guys to our workshop on Quarto websites for personal websites. And so this, I just sent out recently this repo of ours. And this is by CCT in our CCT data science. And on here, there is a link to our RStudio Connect slides if you want to follow along or toggle backwards or forwards at your own pace. This is where our slides are. And I guess first off, like while we're still waiting for maybe some folks to trickle in, would anyone like to share what their goal is for today, or what their experience has been in making websites so far? Completely new to this, or I've already built a website before? Feel free to just unmute yourself. I got a chat answer, completely new.
Yep, I'm completely new too. Yep, total newbie.
Awesome. Well, what made you decide this was the time?
Impending graduation and networking and marketing.
Yes, and that's the personal website, right? We all kind of have to have a brand now, and we have to be Googleable.
Yeah,
and not just attached to our lab's website pages anymore. Leah, I feel like you have a website already, right?
I made a website with Wix, and it's less of like a personal website and more of just like a bunch of my interests. So I'm interested now to try this new way and to make it more of like my professional personal profile.
Awesome. Okay. And anybody else? Sue, I think you had unmuted yourself for a moment.
I've done it a long time ago. I did several Wix sites, and then started a WordPress one, and then I did a landing page. I worked with someone, did a landing page on Hugo, so I could sort of get around ever having to have to, who's going to pay and where's it going to go. And so I'm like, okay, I'll just do it through GitHub. And then, and it was, I've just sort of forgotten what I did when I haven't touched it in a long time, and I need to sort of figure out how to do this. And I think GitHub's a great way to run it, I guess, through, or I don't know what we say, to have that in. Instead of having it on a server somewhere or whatever, post it somewhere. I'm trying to get around that as well.
Okay, well, I know that so we have two helpers with us today, Eric Scott, one of my colleagues in CCT, and Jillian, who I know she has a website on GitHub, because that's one of the first ways I learned about her, was Googling her and finding her website. And so I got into this because I felt very embarrassed for years for not having my own website and claiming to be a data scientist on top of that. When I first met Heidi, I didn't even realize I'd first met Heidi when I took her workshop on making personal websites at ResBaz 2021, I believe. So not even this last year. And since then, I've continued to learn from her, but I never quite committed myself. And so, Heidi, what about you? What brought you to this world?
I think I had a desire to teach that topic at ResBaz, and that was what just got the wheels spinning for me. But it was a really similar process. I built my website with our Markdowns tools, and now I'm switching over into Quarto's tools, and find that both are very user-friendly, and there's a lot to encourage the use of both of them. So I'm really excited to share more of this website building with you today.
Awesome. And so I'm going to go ahead and start sharing my screen. The link, this here is the link for the repository or the slide. I mean, these slides were also made with Quarto, in case that's something you're interested in. And here is so this is hosted on, these slides themselves are hosted on RStudio Connect, which U of A has a license for through the Data Science Institute, which is what which is where Heidi is housed. And so, you too can host your things on RStudio Connect if that is of interest. All right, so sharing my screen now. Personal websites with Quarto with me, Jessica Guo, and I'm very pleased to introduce, I think this is her first workshop since defending, Dr. Heidi Steiner.
Woo!
Yay!
Thanks, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Okay, Heidi, you can tell me when to page, I think, and I will go do that for these slides, okay?
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, let's get started, everybody. We are talking about the tool Quarto today. And if you are unfamiliar with this tool, it's not surprising because this is brand new this year out of the RStudio Corporation that is now POSIT, I guess, since we are in October. So Quarto can be described as a publishing system. So if you are familiar with hosting your website in a particular way already, this is similar to had you used BlogDown with our Markdown, or even if you're using a Wix site, but you will have a lot more control over what goes into your documents and how you can style them. So with Quarto, although that won't be the most obvious use of the tool to build your website today, you can build all kinds of published documents with Quarto, and these are largely language non-specific, meaning that you can include code from many different languages, including R and Python and Observable, which is a cool interactive JavaScript language. So you can do a lot of really fun stuff with the publishing capability of Quarto. I wanted to mention that most of the imagery from this slide deck is art by Allison Horst, who is a lovely graphic data scientist. And so you can find many of the imagery from this slide on RStudio education materials, as well as Allison Horst's personal website. I think we're ready. Next slide. This just a meme here to get a little lighthearted start here, but although you won't see all of the capability of what Quarto can do about letting your source code create your output, our intention with using Quarto as our publishing software, especially in reproducible reporting and also in website creation, is to kind of like get away from that copying and pasting. We don't want to do that anymore. We want to let our code, our source code, create the output so that we can do things like create educational materials for a class and then turn that right into a blog on our website with the same document, for example. Okay, next slide. And we are going to jump in with those 6 steps. I think it is still 6 steps, but it's a very quick process to get you started to host the template or the bones of a Quarto website on a GitHub Pages account. And what you'll find then is that we only did the easy part together today, and we will have left you with a ton of work in actually creating the website that you want and designing it to be just perfect. But that's all the fun part, and you'll have the rest of your time to spend on that. But you will have a published website by the end of these 6 steps. And Jessica is going to take over and get us started, I think, at the command line.
Yes. So I'm going to close this out. Open it up. If you are using RStudio as your IDE, go ahead and open that up. Make sure you don't have an existing project up in the right-hand corner. Make sure it says none. And we are going to be in the terminal window. And so there's a couple of things to check first. The first is that when I open my terminal window, I have a $sign here. So I actually have my RStudio terminal connected to Git Bash. I'm on a PC. If you're on a Mac, it should be like that anyways, because you have a terminal window. And one way to check is going to Tools, Global Options, or if you don't have that $sign, go to Tools and Global Options. I went kind of fast. Let me stop. Let me repeat that. Go into Tools, go to the very bottom, Global Options, and then I'm going to select Terminal here. And underneath the shell, it says that new terminals open with Git Bash. Because I'm on a PC, I have also Command Prompt and Windows PowerShell, but I don't want those options. I want it to be Git Bash. want to be Linux flavored. And I'm going to scroll down to the bottom, hit apply, and OK. And if you didn't already have that, it doesn't turn your new terminal into that, right? Because it just says for new terminal. You might have to go here and click close terminal and new terminal. And at that point, hopefully you see this $sign. So why don't you give me a check mark if you have, you've opened your IDE or just a plain terminal window and you have a $sign.
Can you please repeat the steps to get the $sign?
Yes, of course. So I went to Tools, Global Options, and on the left bar, there's a whole bunch of things. Second from the bottom is Terminal. And under I have two windows, two drop-down menus here. The second of them, it says Git Bash. And so we did send out instructions on Monday if you don't have Git Bash, if you have something else that's Linux approximate that has Git included. Otherwise, the command prompt and the window PowerShell don't have Git. So make sure you have Git Bash selected. If you're on a Mac, this does not apply to you. It should be the terminal anyways. Okay, so that's step number 1. And I see some green check marks, but I also don't see some green check marks. Please feel free to unmute yourself at any point, or if you don't feel comfortable, raise your hand or type into the chat. We have Eric and Jillian monitoring the chat. We have breakout rooms already set up if anybody needs to go to them.
My computer
yes,
is running painfully slow. So
sorry, what was that?
I was just saying my computer's running painfully slow.
Oh no. Yes, and we did ask you to update to the latest RStudio.
I will get that eventually.
Okay. Someone asked in the chat if there will be a recording. Yes, it will be shared on our webpage. I will also send out a follow-up email to this that will contain a short survey and the link to this recording. Okay, so I'm seeing more green check marks. So once you have that $sign, it's time to also check that you have Quarto installed. One way to check this is Quarto itself is a command, like the Git is a command, right? Is that first part? -- help. I will make this bigger. Let's see, is that big? Oh, that might be kind of unusually large, but I'll leave that for now. If it becomes a problem, I'll shrink it back down. And I'm going to hit enter. And for me, for whatever reason, I have not figured this out, and it is reported as a bug on the interwebs. Quarto itself doesn't work on my PC. I think it works. So far, I asked people who have had Macs, don't have a problem with this. Some people with PCs also don't have a problem with this. The alternative is for each time, type quarto.cmd --help. And I do get, well, okay, now I need to go back down a little smaller because that's kind of large. And I do get that is recognized, right? Quarto.cmd is recognized by my computer. And so in all of our directions and our slides, everywhere it says, if this is a problem also for you, everywhere it says Quarto, whatever, you have to type quarto.cmd as I have to. Okay, and if you're copying me, you can stop at Quarto. You don't have to type the .cmd. So can I also get, maybe take down your current green check mark, try that, and give me another green check mark if when you type Quarto or quarto.cmd --help, you get something, you get a response. The computer recognizes that you have Quarto installed. Okay, these are the key things, key ingredients to move forward. So speak up now, please, if one or both of these steps are not working for you. Again, we have helpers at the ready. We have breakout rooms ready. Yeah, Mary, if you have Bash, that's great. Ryan, and you say you don't have Quarto installed. Like both Quarto and quarto.cmd aren't working for you.
Excuse me.
Yes.
So right now, I'm using ZSH. Like I have the bash too, but I use ZSH in my Mac. And so do I need to like create a virtual environment for that to install Quarto or something?
No.
Nope. ZSH works fine. That's what I'm using too. Just any command line terminal window will work.
Okay.
But you do need to install Quarto.
Because when I'm seeing on website, it's saying like Quarto RStudio.
Quarto is a program that is created by the people who also created RStudio, but it is a separate command line program. So you can install it. Alternatively, if you already are an RStudio user, you can update your RStudio, and the latest version of RStudio comes with Quarto.
Okay. I'll just
So there's
create a
part of what will take us a long time to do these 6 steps is because there are so many ways and different ways that everyone is comfortable with using these tools.
I just use Conda.
Yes, Kamel. In your terminal, if you still aren't seeing the $, you can close the terminal and new terminal, or we can just close RStudio and start it up again. Let me know if at that point you do see the $.
Okay.
Yes, $?
No, not yet.
Not yet. Okay.
Following what you just said. So
Awesome.
sorry. Okay, let's try RStudio again.
Quick question. So I checked to see that I'm on the latest RStudio. It says I'm up to date, but it gave me bash Quarto command help command not found. That means it's not on my computer, right?
Yeah, it's not on your computer. And Quarto.cmd also didn't work.
So can you say it again?
What about Quarto.cmd? Like that.
With help or?
Yeah, with the help.
Yeah,
Well, it
that
doesn't
was the
matter.
first thing that's what I put in. What
Okay,
was
so
the other
neither.
option?
Oh, the other option was just Quarto.
Just Quarto, okay.
Yeah, that doesn't work on my computer, but it might
Yeah,
work
that
for
didn't
you.
work either. But let's
Hmm.
see, so I just installed it, so I don't know if there's anything else that needs to happen.
You just installed what? RStudio?
Sorry, Quarto.
You just installed Quarto. Okay, that might be another case of why don't you close down RStudio and restart it?
Okay.
And if anyone else has had this problem and have a solution for the problem. Oh, Jillian says that she has found sometimes RStudio claims to be up to date when it is not.
Okay.
Okay, so that might be another case of going to RStudio itself, the website itself, and downloading the latest version. I think it did that to me as well. I think when I click check for updates, it says I'm using the latest version. But if I go to the internet, I wonder what the latest version is. Well, not easy for me to tell what version.
You can check your version in RStudio by going to help and then about RStudio. And it
Yes,
should
I
tell you.
just did that before
Oh,
I
okay.
started. So I know that I'm on the 2022-07.1 release. I'm just trying to find out what the latest release is.
I'm at green check mark status. I got $, so.
You got a
Amazing.
$.
Yeah, I agree with Jillian on this. My RStudio is at 4.2.1 and it says it's up to date. So I would have to start from RStudio.
That might be your R version 4.2.1, not your RStudio version.
Oh, good point. How do you tell what's my RStudio version?
So,
Same thing in my session.
Corey, I think, was just unmuted himself. If you go to help about RStudio, I was checking with Susan with this earlier as well. So this is, I don't know if this is the newest one, but this is new enough for for Quarto to be on my RStudio. Might check if you have this version or later.
Same thing. I feel like the one you install, it says RStudio desktop on like RStudio.com is 2022.7.2.
Oh.
And that's still not this.
Yeah, so I'm not actually up to date, but all right. Well, Okay, if you have a version, are you talking about a version of RStudio, or your operating system, Jillian? Would you
Yeah,
go ahead and unmute yourself?
this was the thing I messaged you about earlier, because I found that if I did the latest up to date on R, it literally wouldn't open the application and it fussed at me. So I went back to the most recent version that I could open, and it works with Quarto, but you have to install Quarto separately.
Okay.
Okay,
I
interesting.
hope that's
And
not too.
because this is still quite buggy, obviously. Mary, are you you're on a Mac, right? Or if I recall correctly. Oh, you're using console. Okay, perfect. Yes, we're in the terminal tab. Yep. And here, make sure you've got Quarto, and we're gonna move on. Sorry, Kamel. I'm sorry you're having sorry you're having some issues there. But that was all just the preliminaries of diving in. And we're checking our setup. So what we just did was we made sure that we had some kind of Unix flavored command line, and that we have Quarto indeed installed, although there are clearly some issues getting there. We're at least there. Okay, so that was pre-step one. Step one is we're going to create a new directory, a new project using on the command line, which means that first we need to navigate to where we want to be. Where do we want this folder to be? So this is a folder you're going to name. Don't do it yet. You're going to name your GitHub username. So in my case, my GitHub username is Jessica Guo. I know Heidi's is Heidiverse. Whatever your, I know Leah's is Leah Says Yay. Like I somehow know a lot of people's GitHub handles, sorry. Use your GitHub handle, don't actually type username, .github.io. And that is going to be the same web address at which this website will be served. So for me, again, going to jessicaguo.github.io, this is where my Quarto website lives. It's free through my GitHub account, and you only get one, right? Each person gets one username.github.io. So that's why this step is so specific to have this name. But also we're going to use PWD and CD to navigate to where we want that to live. You might have your preferred projects folder. You might have a personal folder where you might put things on the desktop, wherever it is. I'm going to go ahead. Don't necessarily copy me. Do it on the desktop because I already actually have a jessicaguo.github.io. So I'm going to do PWD. Okay, I'm currently in documents. I want to be on my desktop. So I'm going to CD, go up a level, go down a level. And this is where I'm gonna put it on my desktop. So go ahead and navigate to your folder of choice inside the terminal window. That might take, depending on how far you have to go, might take you a minute. Should you delete it? Are you using that GitHub? Oh, is that a web page? Is that using the name, whatever your GitHub handle is, .github.io, Mary?
Sorry. Yes, basically I don't use it. I just created it as part of another workshop that I did, and then I never went back to it. So yeah, but I mean it is alive. It's
So that website is
I
live?
can send you the, yeah. I mean I think you can access, that's the GitHub, repo, but I think I forget
Does
how
this
to
work
access it.
as a link? Did you ever connect it?
Yeah,
Oh,
you see.
you do. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, if you want today, you can also just create today's as a different name and know
Okay.
that there are steps and this is being recorded and you can change it later. Or you could rename this one to be something, this repository to be something else right now and follow along with our steps.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
and we will have a break too, and you can we can talk about it further and you can take some time to do that.
Okay, cool, thanks.
Oh, the steps on the slide. Yes, we haven't done this yet, Sue, by the way. We are currently, the first thing is navigating to where you want your website to live. We haven't done the second part yet.
Excuse me, I need a little bit lagging over here. Sorry for that, but I installed my Quarto in a different way. I just install the Conda and take the PyPy from the Python environment. I take the pip install Quarto,
Okay, great.
and it is showing. So now what we need to do is like I am already in the directory where I want to be.
Okay, then you are completely caught up. You're not behind or lagging at all. You are exactly where we need to be. We haven't moved on yet.
Oh, great then.
Yeah, as long so now, presuming everyone has figured out where they want to go and where they want this new project to go, we're going to go ahead and use the command line command Quarto space create dash project space, and then we're going to put the directory name that we want. Again, your personal username .github.io, and then add a flag dash type space, and then we're going to tell what kind of project do we want. We want a website type project. There are equivalent commands for doing this for different kinds of Quarto projects you might have. You might be making a blog, you might be making a book, you might be making a slide deck. So going back to my RStudio, I'm still in the terminal window. And I am where I want to be. We're going to do a PWD real quick to make sure. Yep, I'm on the desktop. I'm going to make a Quarto space. Oh, wait, for me, I need quarto.cmd. Probably don't. Space, create dash project. Spell that correctly. Space, and now this is the name of the project I'm about to create. I'm going to call mine Jessica, just my first name, which is not my GitHub handle because I already have the other one. .github.io space dash type space, and then website. Hit enter. Read that over again, make sure there's no typos. This indeed is the name that I want. Again, you have replaced Jessica with your actual GitHub handle. You have dash type, you have website. Okay. I hit enter. And it should give you a little message here that's telling you that it is creating a project. This is the location of where your project is, and that it has populated that directory with these files. And indeed, we can and should maybe navigate in there and check that out. So why don't you give me a thumbs up that this step worked, that you got this message, it didn't yell at you. Yeah, ooh. I'm seeing a goodly number of thumbs ups. That makes me very happy. Okay. So now let's use CD and get in there. So I'm already on the desktop. I need my Jessica. I'm going to navigate into my jessica.github.io. I'm going to, and now that I'm in there, I'm going to ls and see what it's about. Oh, okay. Indeed, this is my bare bones. So whenever you're starting from scratch, creating a brand new website project with Quarto, these are the files you're going to find in it. So you have something that starts with, which is interesting. It starts with an underscore, quarto.yaml. You have two .qmds, and again, .qmd is the, or maybe I haven't said this yet. .qmd is the file extension for a Quarto markdown, I guess it stands for, versus an R markdown, which is .rmd. We have two of those. We have an about.qmd and an index.qmd. And then we have a CSS ending that's styles.css. So just the four things. And we're currently inside. Make sure that you are in whatever your username is, .github.io, that folder that we just created. Because step number 2, let me go back to my slides here. Step number 2 is we're going to turn this directory into a Git repository locally, just right on your computer. And to do that, on the command line, you can follow me on the command line. If you have other preferred methods of interacting with Git, great. Use those, use whatever tool you're familiar with. I'm going to show using git init, git add, and git commit on the command line. So, okay. I have to make sure that you're inside the repository that you're trying to initialize. So I'm in jessica.github.io. I want to do git space init. Enter. And that gives me a message that I have initialized an empty Git repository in this spot. So now if I do ls, well, it's very much on the bottom. I don't know if you guys can see that. Whoa. Okay. ls, I still see the same 1, 2, 3, 4 files, but if I do ls with -a flag, I'll be able to see that actually now it's a repository because it's got this .git hidden folder in there. And at least on my screen, I know this doesn't happen in every single kind of terminal window, but I have this main. So now that's how I know, oh, right, I'm in a repo because it's giving me a hint here that I'm on the main branch. So after initializing the repository, our first step is we want to add and commit these full files in there, these 4 files. So we can git space add, and I'm going to just do a period, and that's just going to add everything. Okay, or I could type each individually, you know, no space, but that's a lot of typing. I'm just going to do git add dot. Get this, I get this a lot. I'm going to check a git status real quick. Okay, and so I don't have any commits yet on my branch main, but since I just added, all these 4 files are now green and they have been added. You're now in the staging area. My colleague Christina has a great analogy for this. She says it's like getting people ready to take a picture. This is where you're adding people to the picture, adding files to the picture, taking files away. If you're deciding, and then the next step, the committing step, is the actually taking the picture, recording this moment. And so for that, we're going to use git space commit, and we're going to add a commit message with -m and a double quotes here to type my commit message. And you know, this is just the bare bones, right? So this, I'm not going to put anything fancy here. I'm just going to say initial commit. Later on, when you are doing your own work of personalizing your website, maybe at some point you're going to be like working on your landing page, maybe at some other point you're going to work on your publications page. Like those are the types where you're going to then put more informative commit messages, hopefully, into your commits. I'm going to go ahead and enter that. And it tells me that, okay, I have this initial commit. What happened in this commit? 4 files were changed, 32 lines of code were inserted. That's that. Alrighty. Going back here, let's see. Yeah, and again, this git init really required us to navigate into that folder first. Can I get a check mark if that worked, or just hands up or unmute yourself if something is amiss, anything is amiss?
We haven't pushed it yet, right?
We have not pushed it yet, and we are not going to be pushing for a couple more steps.
Oh,
Yep, because we have to go make a repo on GitHub also. That's the downside of creating it kind of locally. Any other questions? Oh, I see some chats. Yeah. Do we have a Git? Oh man. Songyan, do you mind? Do you want to speak up and let us know how it's going?
I think I missed the Git init
Okay.
step, so now I'm trying again.
Okay. Well, the key thing is you want to make sure when you pwd, you want to make sure that you're in the folder that we just created. And then you can try git space init. I can't even, I can type it, but if I do it again, it's gonna yell at me. Yes, I'm back on my terminal screen. Dessa, what else? Is there anything else you'd like to see?
I have a question.
Sure.
So where you see on that line where it says main, on all your bunch of your lines.
A bunch of my lines, yes, a bunch of them say main.
Yeah, so mine changed at one point from main to master.
Ah, that's also okay. You're running an older I think it might be that you're running an older version of Git, or when you set up your git bash. There was like an option. It's a terminology. It's the same idea. It's just the main branch used to be called master by default. And I think GitHub anyway has now changed to making that main by default.
I have another question that is after I entered the commit, it asked me to, it says, please tell me who you are. And then, familiar with that?
Yes.
Account's default identity, fatal, unable to auto-detect email address. Does that sound familiar?
Yes. Okay. So this is a Git. So I take it that you don't use this computer or you don't use this particular Git on this machine.
It's
very
a new
much.
machine, so yeah. It's a
Brand new.
machine.
Okay. If there's anyone else who is brand new, or the first time using Git on this machine, we're going to have to do something called git config. And the reason we do this is because each time a commit message, it needs an author. It needs to know who made these changes. And that's important because Git is intended as a tool for collaborating on code. And so it needs to know which person or which individual made this change. And so we do git config -- global user. Somebody chime in if I'm wrong. I think it's user dot. Yeah, I think that's it. Git config user dash name. Sorry, user dot name. And you would go ahead and type your actual name. So for you, Ryan space Stevenson, like your name. That's just going to be the name associated with each commit. And I'm not going to do that again because I'm already set up.
Hit enter.
And hit enter. And nothing's going to pop. I don't think anything's going to pop out at you.
$sign.
Yep, it's just going to like read it. The next thing you can do an up arrow, in fact, and git config -- global user dot email. And here you would put in the quotes your email address. I don't know that it matters, but I like to use the same email address that's associated with my GitHub account.
Right.
But I think it would work even if it wasn't. And so after you have those steps, and after that, you can close your quotes and enter. If you repeat the commit, if you go back, you can, again, I know it gave you an error last time, but if you go back up a couple times to your git commit -m initial commit and press enter this time, I'm hopeful that it'll be successful.
Success.
Yes. Okay. One problem down. Sung Ying, I have not forgotten about you. Or wait, no. Giovanni has the same problem. After git init, I get no such file or directory. Giovanni, do you mind sharing your screen?
Yes.
Okay, let me enable that really quick. There you go.
Okay, so share screen. And screen one. Share.
No such file or directory.
Here.
Whoa, that is a new one to me. So you're.
Your directory is not linked with Git yet.
What was that?
This directory is not linked with Git yet.
His directory is not
It's like,
linked.
yeah, type ls-a or ls-alf.
Yeah, if you want to go ahead and do ls dash, oh no, if you want back up all the way up and ls dash
ls space dash
AL.
alf
ALS, sorry.
alf, f as in friends, alf. Yep, there's no Git.
Okay.
But if you do git space in it, it doesn't like it apparently.
You need to connect it with Git first. So you need to connect it with Git first and just so when you connect with Git, it will going to ask you for your username and password, and then it will going to create a private and public keychain automatically for it. So you don't have to put again and again. And then it will going to show the /git repo in it.
I don't think that's necessarily true. I don't think that at this stage anybody needs to be connected to GitHub yet. This is all local. But on the other hand,
Can I chime in? I know this is maybe super silly, but the Stack Overflow, the top post says that maybe your folder is protected with like a virus protection of some sort, and that might be an issue here. I'll share that post with you because I don't know specifically
Yeah.
about that, but
Okay, well,
that might be our
no
issue.
problem, but it could be actually, yes.
Actually, I just saw a
That might be
message in
the
your
reason,
corner
yeah.
that popped up
Yep.
about that. I don't know if
Okay.
there's a way to turn it off just for this one folder and still keep
Yeah,
all the rest
well,
of yours protected.
it's fine, no worries.
Okay.
Thanks for
Well, you
helping.
can still, even if it, so that means if you can't get Git or GitHub connected, that just means that we won't be able to host it on GitHub pages, but you can still do the website locally and the customization locally, and we can work with you at drop-in hours. You can make an appointment. We can still figure out how to get this on the internet later, but
Okay.
okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, going back to the slides, so many slides. Okay, we're almost there, I promise. Like there's a short steps, but I'll make sure that we're not losing folks here. Preparing for rendering, there's kind of two components of this. This is not absolutely necessary, but from what I understand, GitHub expects, for GitHub pages, expects a Jekyll something or other. And we have to tell it that actually we're not using Jekyll. So the touch is going to.
Can you share your screen, Jessica?
Oh, whoops, I forgot I wasn't sharing. My bad. Okay, I'll repeat that. In step 3, we're going to do a couple little steps to prepare for eventually putting it on GitHub. And there's going to consist of 2 things. The first is we're going to make a .no Jekyll file. That's just to tell GitHub pages that, hey, don't bother looking for Jekyll. We don't have one. So we're going to do, let's just do that first. I'm going to touch, gosh, no Jekyll. So I'm going to take this out. Touch, space, dot, no, oh gosh, how do I spell Jekyll? Like that? Jekyll. Okay, getting a thumbs up, nodding from Heidi. Okay, Jekyll, not a word that I spell on the regular, clearly. So I'm going to enter there. And if I want to ls, oh, it's a hidden file. Okay, ls-a, I will see that I have this .no Jekyll. So it's hidden. It's not something that we see. If I just like navigate to that folder, I'm not going to be able to see it unless you have your hidden files turned on. But it is there, and it does communicate a piece of information to GitHub pages when we get there eventually. Okay, does anyone have any problems with this step? The key command here is touch space .no Jekyll. Okay, don't see anybody unmuting themselves here. The second thing that we're going to edit is actually that first file that we saw, the _quarto.yaml. Heidi's going to tell us more about YAMLs next. But first, we're going to navigate to that in RStudio. And I'm actually going to use RStudio for this. If you have a different text editor or a different IDE, go ahead and use that. But I'm presuming most of us are RStudio users, and we're going to use it to make sure that it outputs to a docs folder. And this is a bit like that meme that Heidi was showing earlier, referring to source and then like re-rendering. Like this is everything currently in our that we see here, these .yamls and .qmds and CSS, these are the source files. And once it renders things, it's going to put it in we want it to go all to a docs folder. That's what we're telling it. So I'm actually going to go navigate to using the file pane here on the lower right. I'm going to navigate to where my jessica.github lives. Okay, and so I want to be able to see that in the lower right hand corner. And so use whatever preferred method you have, wherever you're living, go ahead and get to your folder so that the files that we're seeing here with ls-a also show up over here. So they should match. And I'm going to click on the first thing that shows up, the quarto.yaml. And the project is, so yeah, I'm going to let Heidi explain this a little bit better than I can. But under here, we're going to navigate and, oh, what was it again? We want it to say output dash dir colon space docs. Okay. So an improvement of Quarto, I'm pretty sure Heidi was going to talk about this, is that before you had to know exactly what you were typing. Here, if you start typing a couple letters, you can autocomplete. So, and then I'm going to put docs. And that's just the name of the folder that I want all of the rendered documents to go live in. I want it to go into a folder called docs. So currently there is no folder called docs, but after the first time we render, we should see a folder called docs made, and there will be content in that folder that didn't used to be there. Okay, so once you have made this change, we're only adding one line, output dash dir colon space docs, and go ahead and save that. I did a Control S to save that. Okay, that's a great time for Heidi to tell us about YAMLs.
Thanks, Jessica. Yeah, let's take a breather and look at this document for a second. Importantly, if you're having any issue with that YAML spacing, you can copy these code chunks with the little clipboard in the upper right-hand corner if you have these Quarto slides open, which is helpful. You can copy that whole chunk so that the spacing looks right for you, because YAML will be quite specific about how it likes its spacing. And if you're a person who programs in our language, you might not care very much about your indentations many of the times. So that's a good thing to pay attention to here. So YAML, sometimes YAML, and sometimes YML, when it's a file extension, we can think about as yet another markdown language. This YAML text is used to orchestrate all your other files. So it could be two things. In a .qmd file, you will see the YAML looks like this example in the slide with 3 dashes at the top and 3 dashes at the bottom. This is a heading that is telling the rest of this QMD document how to render and how to function. There is another way, and that is in our Quarto.yml or any other .yml file. And this document is orchestrating nested documents. So this document is saying any other document that falls within this Quarto project, although it might have a YAML header at the top of it, then it will additionally follow the orchestration of this document. So we can think about this one as the main conductor of this orchestration that we are creating. And as I mentioned, the YAML header can be quite sensitive about the spaces and indentations. So in a second, you'll understand, but it will be important to render your documents often when you update your YAML header. And then the final thing I wanted to mention about how this is written is the YAML code is always written in this key colon space value format. And so you can see this illustrated a little bit with the example title colon jessica.github.io. So that is the key colon space value. That's a format. However, you see that website colon, for example, doesn't have anything beneath it. That is because all of the keys beneath website are nested within website. So we can use this language in a nested way, but it's always in a key value format.
Yes, and we can also see the relationship between our files here. As Heidi says, this is a very important document. It's orchestrating the structure. Everything else about the website is going to be from here. So we have these two QMDs, about.qmd and index.qmd. They both show up here. They're being orchestrated from here. We have the styles.css, and lo and behold, under here, under format, nested under HTML, nested under CSS, we have styles.css. So when you're adding content, I mean, it's not always true that it's going to show up here, but if you're adding like pages, styles, like it, just because you added another Quarto, it doesn't mean it's going to show up on your website, right? It's not going to show up on your website until you tell it to during the orchestration. Okay, thank you for that, Heidi. The next step is we are going to render. So we're going to use a command line command Quarto render. There are also ways to click a button in RStudio and do this, but we're going to do it on the command line first. And then in the future, if you just want to click a button, that's fine. And I'm going to go back and make sure my I'm in my terminal, right? Terminal, we haven't been on the console yet at all. I'm just in the terminal. And also pay attention. So far we've told it to have an output directory called docs, but it hasn't shown up yet because we haven't rendered it. So hopefully after this, we will see that. So Quarto, for me, I'm gonna have to type quarto.cmd space render and go ahead and hit enter. Yay, stuff happened, right? You guys saw that in real time, or maybe on your screen, maybe on my screen. Things were happening over here in the file pane. What things were they? Well, so far that's the same, that's the same, that looks the same. This is the same. Okay, now I have a doc Quarto, not a showing up. Not really sure what's in that. In fact, I never touch anything in doc Quarto. I have the 2 QMDs and I have the CSS. But this docs folder now exists. Let's take a peek inside that docs folder. Make it a little bigger. All of this looks inside the docs rather similarly to what we just had out there, right? It's like a copy of out there. Heidi, go ahead.
Do you just want to show folks in that little gear in the files how they can show their hidden files if they haven't already turned them on in RStudio?
Oh, yes. Sorry. I think I noted that in quote as well. So here, I have it turned on so that my .NoJekyll shows up. If you want yours to show up too, in the gear, I have it checked. Show hidden files, the very last option. So once you have that, that should show up for you too. You'll be able to see your .git, .ignore. Okay, so this is what it means to render, right? We have given the computer the command Quarto render, and it is looking inside this whole, and we're from inside this folder, and it's taking all of this whole folder and it's rendering it from, we have like .qmd, but in here, the extensions are now .html. So it's been rendering your source code to HTML. That's what happened in this step. And now HTML, I mean, that might be something you're familiar with. If you grew up in like the 90s and 2000s, you may have played around in HTML and customized your like Zanga or LiveJournal. I'm probably really dating myself at this point. But you know, HTML, that's the language of the internet, the language of the internet. You can see web pages with this. Like, this is the folder then that if nothing, I mean, we want to save our source code too, but this is the folder that is going to tell, that's going to be related on GitHub pages to what actually shows up. So in the future, if you make changes in your YAML or make new pages, if you add new pages, but you don't render them and push them up to GitHub, you're not going to see it at your email, at your website address, right? You're only going to see it if you have both rendered it and pushed it to GitHub. So certainly, so right now we've done step 1 of 2. We have done the rendering, we have HTML files, but if we make changes, we need to render them again, right? And this is that. And I think RStudio and Quarto does a nice job of like making that process easier for us to get feedback. Okay, I'm going to do this. I'm going to render it. I'm going to look at it. Oh, I want to nudge that picture over here. I want the color to look different, and then go back. And so that really kind of makes that cycle of editing and updating a little bit easier for novices. And I am definitely a novice as well.
Excuse me, Jessica.
Yes.
There was someone who's using ZSH. Yep.
Uh-huh.
So
I am.
Okay, I suddenly installed the Quarto, and it is showing that requirement already satisfied because I have Quarto. But the thing is, when I'm writing Quarto help, ZSH is saying that command not found.
It shouldn't matter whether you're using ZSH or bash, but if yeah, I don't think that would make a difference necessarily.
Did you install with pip though, right? Maybe
Yep.
maybe it put Quarto in the wrong place. I had some issues in the opposite direction installing Python with Quarto. So maybe that's an issue. I'm not sure.
I have my virtual empowerment set up, and I've just like, I did it again, pip install Quarto, And it shows that, yeah, all the requirements are satisfied. I have everything, whatever I need.
But then would you have to say Python, Quarto, help, since you installed it with pip? I'm sorry, that might be a super naive thing to say.
There's no Python file in Quarto.
Gaurav, if correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you were able to create the project,
Yes.
but you're not able to render.
Yep.
That's weird because you were able to create the project. That suggests to me that you did in fact install Quarto and it's working in ZSH or whatever terminal you're using. I don't have a good answer for you. I'm sorry about that. I don't know why. We are going to try something.
Well, I'm wondering, I mean, I don't know much about pip install, but I'm wondering if now that you've created this Quarto project, it can't find the path to Quarto from inside the project or something. I don't know. But if you were able to use the Quarto create project command, then you definitely have Quarto installed. And so I'm not sure why the Quarto render wouldn't work. Yeah, so when you said in the chat the Quarto commands are not working, I thought you meant like none of them. But it's specifically just the Quarto render that gave you errors?
Yep. Now just when I'm like, I did everything. Still yet, everything is there. But now when I'm saying like, okay, Quarto render, it says there is no command Quarto.
Oh no.
That's so bizarre. Huh. This might not be something we can resolve right now. As I said, Quarto is very buggy. Still, it's brand new, released in July. I think, well, if you want to bug him, there's like a U of A faculty member in CS who works for Posit, RStudio, not Posit, on particularly Quarto. So we can definitely bring it to their attention that this is one of the issues, and they are going to have to improve on that. I'm sorry though.
Sure, no problem.
The next thing, so this is just rendering. We haven't seen anything, right? So we're still waiting on seeing the website. The next command that we can use includes render. I just wanted you to know what rendering was so that you could see what it's doing. It's making this docs folder that previously didn't exist. Inside that docs folder is the same structure that we've had before, except now QMDs have turned into HTMLs. Does anyone know how to get the build tab to show up? Is there like a configure build tool? Oh God.
I think it might need to be an R project, an RStudio project.
Our project.
An RStudio project.
Yes.
Because I don't have a build tab either. So.
For those of us who are using RStudio, let's go ahead and make this into an RStudio project. I wanted to show you the RStudio clicking way of doing it. So let's go to project, new project. And we're going to create a project from an existing directory, right? We already did Quarto create project, it already exists. We just need to tell the computer where it lives. For me, I'm going to go to the desktop and click on my jessica.github.io and click open. So yeah, in here from create project from existing directory and navigate and select your folder, whatever your username.github.io, and hit create project. This doesn't apply, of course, if you're not using RStudio. Aha, great. Okay, my terminal window got restarted, but I now have a build. So if you're not very comfortable on the command line and but you are very comfortable in RStudio, you can go ahead to the build tab, and there is both a render website and a preview website. And that's equivalent to Quarto render and Quarto preview. Previewing includes rendering. So the rendering, I just did that just to show you, and maybe sometimes you make small changes, you know what they're going to do, you don't care to see it, you just want to render it. But we also want to see, right? We haven't gotten to see our bare bones website yet. So I'm going to do quarto.cmd preview from inside my project. Hit enter. That is where it's going to bring me to. Yay! This is the website. This is what we have. This is what it looks like. Repeating how to create the project. Yes. Well, shoot, it's gone now because I already, well, but you go down here and I think the first option was like create project, Mary, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry. Basically, my doubt is, so I say create new project and then create project from existing directory, and then I go to the project, to like the directory I created for the GitHub repo, right? Okay, and I just
and then
open
you
that.
click create project.
Okay, cool. Sorry, yeah, I got sidetracked with
That's
other
okay.
stuff.
I completely understand.
I am a little bit lost too over here.
Okay. I'm
Okay.
sorry. If you're not using RStudio, this doesn't apply.
Okay.
This is like an RStudio specific thing because RStudio and Quarto are both made by the same company. So this is if you want kind of a GUI way to do some of these command line steps. Here's the render button, here's the preview button. So this is at this point. Whoa. This is not on the internet yet, right? We haven't put it on GitHub pages yet, but we have rendered and previewed what our HTML in HTML, what our website looks like when we control it from the YAML and the QMD and the CSS. And this is very bare bones. This is what the bare bones they give you when you say Quarto create project, a what type website. You get home page and a blank about page, a blank home page. The name of the project, the name of the website is the same name as what you named your file, what you named your directory. There's a little bare bones search function, and that's it. And it's got this, I forget the name of the theme that's the default, but it's got the default blue banner across the top. So it's very bare bones, but I hope you can see that, okay, now that you know how this works, that you can start customizing. You can add pages, add a page of publications, add a page about your research, add a picture to this home landing page so people know who you are, add your Twitter, add your ResearchGate, your LinkedIn. You can do a lot of customizations on top of this bare bones. And so this is what it looks like, and it came from just these couple of files. Oh yeah, I think, and we now have this .rproj as well. Next step, oh, Heidi, go ahead.
Just can we get another green check mark? Is everybody seeing bones? Does everybody see a previewed website? Bones. Yeah, I'm still confused about how the project didn't get created when we did create project at the get-go. So I'm a little wishy-washy on what happened there, but otherwise this looks good. Lots of green check marks. Everybody is able to see how these two QMD files are creating this template website. The index.qmd is the welcome mat of your website. It's always going to be the welcome mat. Index.qmd will be that first page. Doesn't have to be what you keep it there as the about your information or something. And then the about.qmd is of that second page, illustrating this point that anytime you have a new .qmd file or will add to that, you can create a brand new page to your website or nested pages of your website with an individual Quarto document.
Right, and we actually haven't looked at those Quarto documents yet. Go ahead and now, if you want to click your about and click your index, you might change the titles of these. You might go to the Quarto YAML, and I'm going to change my title here to my name. And why don't you guys take a couple of minutes and you might change the name. Maybe you don't want it to be about.qmd. You can change the name of about, or you can change how it shows up. Here, notice in the YAML, this page is called index.qmd, but it shows up as home. There's a way to do that. You can mimic that for the about too, if you want to turn the about into like a research page. So take a couple of minutes, very minor customization, but as you're feeling your way through how these different pieces work, have some edits, render your website, and then preview your website and see if you can get those changes to show up on your rendered version. And I'll also take any questions also
Sorry,
take
can
here
can I ask you one thing, Giovanni?
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
as I was not able to connect the GitHub page for rendering,
Mhm.
but when I open the index.qmd,
Mhm.
I have that render command that you have on build. Yeah, that's this, and I can see it just in the viewer. So yeah.
Yeah. So this, by the way, is also local. It popped up in my internet, but this is not an internet address, right? It's not connected. I'm not connected to GitHub yet either. Nobody here is. This is local. And so this is the same local that you would see in here in your viewer, but for whatever reason, mine shows up over there. So yeah, you're absolutely right. Giovanni is right. You can do all of this stuff without putting it on GitHub. You can still like customize and make a website, and we can figure out that connecting component at a later time. And yeah, feel free to play around, change the titles, add some pages. We are gonna give you, Heidi is gonna lead us through how to actually customize some other components like the themes and the colors and the templates. In fact, let's do that right now. For the index, for that landing page, I think most of you will want this. I neglected to put this in the slides, so just want to make sure to emphasize it here in the talk. Quarto, there's a lot of words for things. I was like, what's the difference between a theme and a template? Apparently the theme is like the colors. There's like some standardized color themes. We're gonna talk about that later. Templates is for a page, for a Quarto, for a .qmd page. And Quarto has provided us with 5 options for kind of your landing page. If you want it to look like this, if you have a picture of yourself that's like long-wise, maybe you want to look like that, a picture of yourself that's more landscape. Maybe you want the picture on the right. Maybe you want the picture on the left. Maybe you want your picture to be in a circle. Okay. So we're going to take this, and the way to do this here is like under the about, we're going to use a template option trestle. I am going to go do that. So about, and then template, and then maybe I want Hoya. Okay, I think I want Hoya. So I'm going to go to my index.qmd, enter, about, and again, specifies, it tells me a little bit about there. Oh, I thought I had to do template. Yeah, I think I do have to do template. And then I'm going to pick the first option. And then actually, this makes it really easy. I can actually pick my options here. And I'm going to save that. Okay, and recalling that preview includes rendering, I'm going to click this now preview website. Terminating the existing server, it's making me a new one. Okay, and so this doesn't look very different because I don't have a picture on it. I can pop it out. That's my actual website. Okay, they're the same. Okay, and so it doesn't look very much different, but there are other, we can follow the, and we can also add kind of an image, right? Maybe that image is the thing that's going to really make it look different. But I'm going to be quiet for a moment.
Jessica, can you help me with one thing?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I am working on Atom, but I have my RStudio open too.
Uh-huh.
So my RStudio doesn't show any render or preview, something like that.
Okay, right. So you can still use the terminal window in there and do Quarto preview and Quarto render.
Okay. What?
This was the step. Sorry, I didn't realize you also were using RStudio. You're very versatile.
I have everything open.
Yeah, you have everything. You have it all. So you can make it, you can create a new project from an existing directory. This build tab shows up after you turn it into an RStudio project. So there's kind of 3 synonymous things going on right now. We have a Quarto project, which we created with Quarto create project. That created a folder. There's some stuff in the folder that pre-populates. Great. We've turned that folder also at the same time that it's a Quarto project. It's now a Git repository with Git in it. And then finally, with this step here, we're turning it also it is an RStudio project. So it's like 3 things at the same time. And they are distinct. And you can choose different combinations of them.
So if in case, like if I type Quarto preview on the terminal,
Mhm.
it just say that YAML front will metafade, something like that. It must be of, oh, okay.
Well, do you want to share your screen?
Yeah, just give me a sec.
Quick question, what was the URL for on the making those changes to the page?
Okay, it worked.
Great question. Oh, it worked. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I'm going to share my screen again then and grab the URL. This is the URL.
Websites about.
And I think yeah.
About pages. Got it.
There you go. Sorry, it took me a second to find my chat box. There's a lot of things going on my screens here. Okay, so that was the first step. Was anyone able to do some change? And for example, my heading up here now says Jessica Esquo instead of jessica.github.io. Were people able to do this step? Thumbs up if you were able to make some change and then see it with the preview. And of course, understanding, of course, you're going to be doing this a lot more as you build your web page. It does take some time. And you can get endlessly lost in the details sometimes, as I once was. But okay, that's great. We made changes to the source in this case. So we are going to track those changes. So back in your terminal, for me, this is like my favorite command, or at least the one I type the most often, git status. What did I change? Well, we did a lot actually, because we turned it into our RStudio project. So we have a .rproj. We rendered it. So now we have HTML files in the docs. We created it. There was now a git ignore. There's now a .node Jekyll. And then we modified, or I modified in 2 places. You might have only modified in one or the other. I modified the Quarto YAML and I modified the index.qmd, that landing page. I want all of these changes need to be tracked.
What was the command you used?
Git status. Sorry, I'll scroll up. GIT status, space status.
Thank you.
No problem. And if this is your first whirl about with Git on the command line, I'm sorry, I'm kind of blowing through it kind of fast. We do offer workshops on how to use Git, and you may or may not choose to use it on the command line. Many people don't. Okay, but I'm going to do another Git add, and I want to add everything, including my .rproj actually, so that if I ever, God forbid, lose my work, if I clone it on a new computer, I can open that, click that .rproj, and all of this will kind of populate back up. So I'm going to commit everything, add everything. So now after I add, if I do git status, it should all be green. Yay. And it added so there's a lot more files now. And that's because inside the docs, there's the HTML versions of a lot of this stuff, right? Okay, so git commit -m. I'm going to put a commit message. What did I do? Prepare for rendering. I guess it's not really prepare for rendering. What we're really doing is we're doing some steps to prepare for GitHub. Okay. So again, I've added and I've committed, but I haven't pushed yet because we haven't done that next step. All right. What is next for us in our slides? So yeah, we've done a little bit of editing, a very small amount of toy editing, and then we've added and committed these changes. And again, both of these are necessary. We have to render, preview or render, and then we have to add and commit. And step 5 is, this is the last step before the break. We are going to take a little break here after this. This can potentially be a little hairy. So let's see, I'm going to close off everything else. Outline, preview the steps before we walk through it. We're going to go to everyone's going to go to their browser and go to GitHub and create a new repository. New repository should have the same name that your project does locally, right? It should be your username.github.io. And then we're going to copy the URL, bring it down, and then connect the two. We want to connect the local, everything so far has been local, right? And we're going to connect the local Git repository to GitHub. Giovanni, you won't be able to follow along this step because you weren't able to turn it into a repository. If you have never, on this particular machine you're on today, if you've never connected to GitHub before, there are some slightly painful steps to go through. But don't worry, that's why we have a break. We have a break and we have breakout rooms and we're going to walk you through it. But if you already use GitHub regularly, this should be pretty familiar. So going to GitHub. I'm actually on my landing page, there's just this green button that says new. I'm going to go ahead and press that. Now I'm going to create a brand new repository without a template, but I do want to name it. For me, I'm calling it jessica.github.io. It's going to have the same exact name as my project does. I don't need a description. The other thing, this does have to be public. So the cost of having GitHub host your web page for free is that your repo for this has to be public. If there's any particular files, I guess you don't want to be on the internet, you can put them in your git ignore. If there's anything I can't think of right now off the top of my head, if there's anything sensitive you wouldn't want to share because it's going to be your website anyways. But if there were, you can put it in a git ignore and then it won't show up on GitHub. But the repository does have to be public. And we're not going to add anything. We already have a git ignore. If you want to, you can add a readme later. Like we're not going to choose a license. It's going to have to be empty when we connect it because all the content is in your local Git repository. So we want this one on GitHub to be just empty and have the same name. Go ahead, if you have that name there, go ahead and click Create Repository. Okay. This is the point at which if you already use GitHub regularly, you know if you are using a personal access token in HTTPS, or if you have an SSH key to connect. Or at least I'm assuming you know which way you have. I personally have an SSH key. So I have this SSH clicked. It starts with git@github.com. If you use a personal access token, you're going to click HTTPS and it's going to have that HTTPS beginning. Whichever way that you connect, go ahead and copy that name to your clipboard. Now let's go back. Okay, we're going to do git remote add origin, then check it, and then we're going to push. Well, first, let me make sure. Can I get a thumbs up? If you're done, we have a new repository on GitHub and you have copied the correct for you link. Thumbs ups? Thumbs up? I know some of you aren't able to do this step. Better check the chat as well. Okay, great. Let's go to RStudio. In my terminal window again. So I have this repository locally, but I want to add a remote. And the remote I want to add is going to be called, or we're going to call it origin. It's going to be like my copy because it's going to be associated with my account. So git space remote space add space origin, right? So we're going to add a remote and we're going to call that remote origin. And this is where I'm going to, for me, I need to right click and paste. Whoa. What just happened? It looks funny. I don't think that worked. Why did it do that? Okay. Whoa. What happened? I think I messed it up. Let's see. Let's try a new term. Okay. Git remote add origin. And I use SSH, so I'm going to paste, and it's going to start with git@github.com. Fatal, remote origin already exists. Oh, that worked then, even though it looked really funny. I'm going to check Git remote. This was the next step anyways. Once you do that, Git remote staff3. Okay, even though it looked really funny, it worked. And so this tells me that I can now fetch, basically push and pull from GitHub, and it's connected. My GitHub repository that lives in the cloud is connected to my local repository that lives on my computer. And this, because I've verified this, now I can finally, I haven't pushed yet this whole time. We've been adding, committing, but not pushing. Git, push. Where do I want to push to origin? All right, origin from my local main. So you don't really need to type all that out. You can probably just do git push. I like to be safe and press enter there.
In my case, would I want to hit master?
Exactly, Ryan. Perfect. If your branch is called master, you want to do git push origin master. Great. And once, how will we, okay, so this didn't give me an error message. It didn't stall out or anything. And how I know to check that it really worked is I go back to GitHub, I refresh my page, and all of those things that I added and committed now show up on GitHub. That's what the pushing is doing for me. And it needs to get here because I need it here for all the HTML files in here to be hosted on my GitHub pages, my username.github.io page. So it all needs to be up here. Did that work, Ryan?
It might be thinking because I can't type anything, but nothing else has showed up after I hit enter. I just have the blinking Q.
Okay, and this is where we're going to stop for a break. And if it worked for you, go ahead, take a break. Come back in 10 minutes, let's say 12:35. And if it didn't work for you, this is the time we have Eric, me, Heidi, and Jillian on hand for breakout rooms. If we need multiple breakout rooms, we have 2.
Yeah, if there's anyone in particular, like RStudio users who have never set up a connection to GitHub before, I can help those folks out in a breakout room.
Jessica, I have one question. So, okay, we have done, I actually never do this thing in that way. I usually just git clone method. I use git clone and everything. So it is showing in my GitHub that I have to compare and pull request because master had some recent pushes.
That is bizarre because this is a brand new repository, right?
Yeah, because it is you. So what we have done is like we have pushed it, but then using origin and master, and now it is the master one that you have to pull every time. Otherwise, you have to do git clone. I think so, if I'm not wrong.
No, I don't think you need a clone because you have a local repository, right?
Yeah.
It is a Git repository locally. I think, did you maybe click and you initiated it with like a license or something?
No,
Or
it's just a simple.
is it empty on GitHub?
Yeah, it is empty on GitHub, and also because usually when I use GitHub with my Atom, it always show push. Right now, it is showing publish.
Okay. Well, let's have people follow folks into the breakout rooms. I think, did Eric already go for a breakout room? Do we know this? Okay, Eric's in room 1. I will go into room 2. And Heidi, can you staff the main room here?
Yes, sorry, but just so we can be clear, anybody who's is trying to link their RStudio Git with their GitHub, hop in with Eric to room 1.
Yeah, go with Eric.
Sounds like Val, that's probably what you're up to if you're using RStudio. Jessica, what kind of questions do you feel comfortable answering out of this?
Random questions. I'm going to go to room 2. If you have something that doesn't fit that, and Heidi can't answer it, join me in room 2. I don't promise that I can answer it either.
Okay, and Jillian, will you hang out here for just keep the room, man the room? I'll be in room. Wait, there are only 2 rooms here. Well, thank you. Actually, there are only 2 rooms. So did Jessica need to make that 3rd room? Let me see if I can do that.
I don't know if I can man a full room because even I'm having a fatal error on my end.
Okay, well, I'll just stay here then. Who's up? Who's up? I'll take anything I can see. I'm not sure that I can help with Mary's issue, but Jillian, do you want to share screen? Val, if you're asking for username and password, I'm gonna ask you what editor you're working in. Oh, lost Val. Jillian, go ahead.
Okay, sure. I'm getting, let me open this up.
How can you go to room 1? I think you should be able to join breakout rooms from the bottom right corner, but let me see if I can put you in room 1. Okay, bye. I have assigned you. Okay. Can you share? Yeah, yep, you can.
Here we go.
Is anyone else, sorry, 1 second. Shit. Okay, anyone else having issues getting to a breakout room? And Corey, room 1 is for RStudio folks linking their Git to their GitHub. If you're not having any issues pushing to GitHub, you can take a break. I think she said like 5 minutes, so and head back. And otherwise, room 2 was random questions, and so are we here in this main room. Okay, now Jillian, sorry about that.
No worries. Okay, so I just got failed to push some refs to da 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 da. The error says SRC ref spec main does not match any.
Well, that was that same error, right, that Mary is getting?
I do not recall. There was a lot of
Failed to push some, oh, it says SRC ref spec main does not match any error, failed to push some refs. Is that what yours says too? Failed to push some refs, yeah. So my question for Mary was just about to be, like, she had done this before. Did you already have a repository that was under this name? I was thinking Mary, maybe hers wasn't deleted or something. Did you have that same?
No, wait, I actually want to check if I had already made a repository associated with this project.
Right, because I'm thinking if it's not empty on GitHub, it's going to be upset that you try to push something.
Nope. So I just made a repository on GitHub called jillian.github.io, copied it.
So it's still doing that like empty repository thing, and it just has a bunch of links to grab instead of code folders.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, that should be good. Okay. And if you refresh that page, it still looks exactly the same.
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, that should be good. Like, I'm not the best Git user in the world, but let's go ahead and try that. If we say Git status, what does it look like? And you were able to do everything but push, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so on branch master, nothing to commit, working tree clean. What does that mean? Okay. So
I don't even see the Git up here in the tab, so I wonder if I goofed something up when I tried to remember earlier when we were opening it, try to get the build tab to show.
yeah. Well, why don't you try that? Why don't you try closing out your whole RStudio and opening up the Jillian R project, jillian.github, because maybe that is just the case that it needs, because I agree, you should have your Git window in the upper right-hand corner then, if it's linking properly.
What? I thought it was earlier, but.
Oh, so you had build and Git before. Oh, there they are. Let's see. Can you use this?
Nothing's showing up in the Git.
What? Okay, but that would make sense because nothing was there. So then what about in the little, oh, Renee has help in the chat.
Ooh.
Thank you, Renee. We can try this quick.
Okay. So that's on GitHub itself.
It looks like that. Yeah, drop down menu says main, click master, update. Yeah, on GitHub.
7.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully that. resolves. Renee, so you got your push worked just fine then to GitHub?
Yeah, the push worked, and then it just pushed to master. So there's two different branches.
Okay, yeah, that's frustrating, and I'm now wondering why we're having so many differences between who has a main and who has a master. I'm gonna need to do a little bit more digging about that.
I don't see those options on my repository, which is interesting. Oh, I have too many tabs open.
We
Okay.
can't see your, oh, there we can. So, okay, so settings, we're here.
And then I don't see anything that says branches. Or is it down here?
Well, default. I'll try looking on my settings. Yeah, I don't see branches either. Maybe because Renee had already got a branch to push, that then it like opened that up. Mine was on the left side bar. I don't see that there, but when I Googled the error, I mean, I'm sorry, Jillian, I'm not a ton of help. This is the Stack Overflow, which I'm sure you popped up already. But they're suggesting that it needs a pull that you might need to pull down. I don't know why there's nothing in yours, so I don't see how that could be true. But there's like a chunk of code. It's pretty far down. I'm going to share this too. That looks like this. That is like resetting this origin. But it looked like you have a master branch, not a main branch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that's what this is trying to like harmonize those two branches. Might need to wait for Jessica here or see if you can hop over into Jessica's room actually. Sorry, Jillian. She's our resident Git expert, at least at the command line. So hopefully she can help you a little bit more than this.
Sure.
I think she's in room 2.
All right. Yeah, but I mean, others prioritize helping others first because I know technically I'm supposed to be here as a helper, but.
Oh, no worries. No, we should. Yeah. Oh, Jessica's back. So good. We can still help here.
What?
We still need help.
Okay. What's going on?
It is not letting me push.
Is it a branch thing? Is it because you're on main versus master?
We think so. Yeah.
It's
Okay,
this error. Fatal cannot run. Oh, maybe
I
not.
mean, I don't really know what that is, but so the problem is now that GitHub has its main, you want to rename your master branch main too. And so I had already typed that, but here it is again in the chat. To rename your local branch from master to main and try git push origin main.
Okay.
I guess that's something when I set up my git bash that was set, I should remember to teach people to like always set it to main when we do it this way. It works for me, but not for others.
Is that what's going on? It's a git bash issue? Because I'm like not even understanding. I thought everybody used main branches now. So, but you're saying
everybody
GitHub
on
uses
GitHub
main.
does. GitHub switched over. Git is older. And if you have an older version, so I don't always update to the latest version of Git, right? But if you have a newer version of Git, I think that's the case too. When when you install Git bash, which you wouldn't do, Heidi, because you're not on a PC. But when I install it on a PC, there is an option that's got like 16 pages of menu options. One of the menu options is, do you want the main branch to be on main or master? And I always pick
Gotcha.
main. But that's when I'm teaching people and we're like paging through those 16 pages together.
Right.
Math people don't even need,
followed
so.
those instructions in that chapter that you sent me, and I changed my default to always be main because it was doing master. And then once I changed it to default should be named main, now they're all named main.
Can you find that and paste it into the chat as well, Leah? Thanks. I know there's a way to do it. I don't know it off the top of my head.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, let's start back up at 12:40.
That's super helpful. I'm learning so much about Windows users today.
We have a difficult life is really what you need to know. And I need a break as well. I'll be back.
Okay. I'm here. Did anybody else have issues that aren't Git related? Because apparently I can't help with that. Jillian, did you get that to work? Yeah, awesome. Oh, well, we should have sent you to Jessica right away.
I don't know what was up with it, but I think it might have just gotten goofed because I kept switching between the different projects and whatnot. But I'm also using an older version of RStudio, so I don't know how smooth the integration is with the Quarto tools and things like that. So I've been having to like build it from terminal every time, yada yada. But
yeah, they have pretty large releases of versions often with this because it's a newer program. So it happens that we run in all the time. People do or do not have the visual editor, or do not have the tab completion. So lots of stuff is a little buggy yet. Said start back up at 12:40, but it looks like breakout room 1 is still working on getting their RStudios linked with GitHub. So maybe instead of at 12:40, we should just wait till breakout room rejoins us. A message error.
Okay, it is 12:40. Should I close breakout rooms? Warn them, maybe?
I don't know. I tried to message Eric, but I'm sure he's got his hands full, but it seems like they must not be through their steps yet. Could we give them a minute yet? How many steps do we still have to get to?
I was in there and they had at least a couple of people were initially speaking up. Mary and Ryan were done. I'm gonna do this close all rooms. It gives them 60 seconds to come back.
Cool.
But we do want to get people to the part where they can see their page on the internet. So
yeah.
We're very close. We're on the last step. That was the hardest step, was GitHub, connecting to GitHub.
And if everything else is kind of just a walk through an intro, that'll be totally fine. So
yeah, the rest of the stuff I think is for you, and then but the last thing is just this publish, and it'll take a second too. So you want
Hey, Jessica.
Hey,
sorry for that.
did it work?
Yeah, I've deleted it. So now I need to like rebuild the repo again.
Yeah. So on GitHub, make the same repo with the same name, but don't have anything in it.
Done.
And then same thing. So do whatever it is, HTTPS or SSH that you do the git remote add origin, connect it, and then try pushing. And your local branch is now called main, right, Gaurav?
Yeah.
So that should take care of that. And up in the right on the chat, we have a lot of people chime in with how to default for all your Git repositories that are initiated locally, how to always have that main branch be called main. So to avoid these issues. Hey, sorry I called you guys out of that room. Eric, were there any lingering thoughts you needed to share?
I think we got it figured out. Jamie was just introducing herself to Git, was adding her username and email address, but I think, yeah, let us know if that doesn't solve your problems. And
is there a way to check status from the terminal?
Check what status?
That you're introduced with Git.
That it knows your email address and username.
You can do git config-l, I think. I mean, I will share my screen and try that. Oops. Git config-l, and so here my user.name and user.email are set. Here are my other I guess, config settings. So it knows where my remote is. Yeah, a couple of other things. All right, the reason I called you guys back, although I know you guys are having good conversations in there as well, is that we want to get to step 6, which is publishing. So right now, what we should have is on GitHub, you should see your files, including the docs folder, which contains your HTML on GitHub. But it doesn't know yet that we want to turn this into our username.github.io website. To do that, let's go to settings, which is this gear. Sorry if I went a little bit fast. So across the top, got code, pull requests, projects, all kinds of things. The last one is settings. Let's go ahead and click on that. And there's a lot of things here. One thing you want is to go down on the left is to pages. So under settings, go to pages. And we want to deploy from a branch. So we're saying GitHub page is saying, where do I look for to look for these HTML files to deploy a web page? Where should I go? And we need to tell it. So for me, this is problematic because this isn't really my GitHub page, but you would go here and select main as your branch. And instead of the root folder, remember, doesn't contain any HTML. The root folder has your QMD, your .yaml, your .css. You want to go to docs. You want to make sure docs is, and then you want to hit save. Okay. This isn't what yours probably actually looks like though, because, again, Jessica is not my GitHub handle. I don't know how early I would have had to be on GitHub to have Jessica. So I'm going to go to my actual website and go say settings, pages. And again, here I have it set to main, branch, docs folder. And you should have this GitHub pages, which says it's designed to host your personal, organizational, or project pages. And it should say that maybe that your site is live and that you can visit the site. Do folks see that? If you do see that, feel free to go to that, click on that link or say that it's site and take yourself to your deployed GitHub website.
So mine says all that, but it's a 404 not found.
Yes.
Okay.
Great.
Might
That's
take a
exactly
moment.
what you want to see.
Okay.
No, normally you don't want to see that, but it takes a while for this to deploy. So we're going to set that up, and I'm going to go back, and you guys can keep checking it periodically, but I'm going to take you guys back to the talk. And just saying one more thing before I turn it over to Heidi for all of the rest of the customization, which is you might have noticed that there is an individual render button for each Quarto document up here. It's got this it's got the Quarto label, but it's an arrow. So this is what I would use if you're like, if the question is, how is it going to look on Quarto? Like Quarto has its own syntax. It's similar to R Markdown, but not exactly the same for code chunks, for text sections, all that stuff. So you can render it just the page, just to see what it looks like real quick. when you're editing it. I think that's a useful function. The other way you can look at it locally is with this visual editor in RStudio, and it just makes it look a little bit more like what it would look like when it does get rendered. But sometimes that's a little buggy as well. But this render, it does not take the place of the render that's for the whole website, which is the equivalent of in the terminal window, the Quarto render. So this slide is just to remind you that like rendering each page provides immediate feedback is great when you're like trying to figure out how to get the columns to line up or to get the margins to look right. Great, render it on that page. When you're ready to publish your whole website, make sure you use either Quarto render or that render website button that's under build. And a final reminder that rendering is step one. Did you render? And then those changes, right? If nothing, your source will have changed, but also the files in your docs folder, all those HTML files will also have changed. Those changes need to be added, committed, and pushed to GitHub. Then, and only then, can you maybe after the space of a couple of minutes, you'll see your changes live on your website link, right? And so if your website if you've done changes and locally you see them and it's not updating, ask yourself, did I render the whole website and did I push it to GitHub? Okay. Can I get, is anybody's GitHub webpage showing yet? Or is it still 404? Ryan, what does it look like?
Hasn't changed yet.
Hasn't changed yet. Okay, still taking its time. All righty. Well, it's premature for the success slide, but we'll skip that and turn it over to Heidi. Take it away.
Well, yeah, we'll reorder these slides and have me chat a little bit about customizing the workshop before the success slide comes up next time, but it will come up. It'll be there in a second. So I wanted to include this screenshot of an example that is no longer bare bones of what a very eloquent, I think, example of a Quarto website can look like. This is Sam Chick's personal website where you can see across the nav bar at the top that she added additional pages to her Quarto website already and really organized this landing page to look presentable and for her Quarto website. You can do all of these customizations within your Quarto, and you're started already with Jessica shared about templates. On top of templates, you also get into the theming where you can see Sam used really lovely green colors here, and all throughout your website, you can change themes, add logos, add all kinds of information about yourself. This screenshot links to Sam's webpage, or no, it doesn't, it should. I will post that to you. But this is a great place to learn more about what you can do with your Quarto website is to learn here from somebody. Oh, perfect. It's already on the information Jessica's sharing with you on the screen. You can learn from examples of Quarto websites because everything that is included on this website, the source code is available on Sam Chick's GitHub. So if you see something you like on this website, or if you see something you like hosted on another Quarto website, maybe Jessica's, go steal the things. This is, an open science community, and we are all trying to work together to share these resources. So great examples down here of personal websites and maybe even a course website here too. So you can do a lot of really cool things with Quarto websites. The second or the next thing we were talking about was theming and how you can quite easily add major themes to your Quarto YAML header inside the .yml file. Jessica's going to show you some other examples of Bootstrap themes here. Yeah, I was right. Bootstrap themes. I use this pink one. I think it's like strawberry or something I use on mine. So this is just a overall theme, and none of it actually has to stay exactly the same, but this will help you get much closer to how you want your website to look. So if you like for example, the font or the layout that's included with one of the templates, go there and start using, themes, start with that theme, and then you can from individual CSS styles inside your work website, you can change the colors and you can update the sizes and you can really do more individual fine tuning of what the website looks like inside that styles.css full file that we haven't clicked around much yet. Then this example in the slide is also showing you if you would like to be able to toggle your website back and forth between like a light mode and a dark mode, that it is simple as including both light and dark in the YAML here. I think Jessica's finding an example to show us. Here we go, toggled back and forth between light and dark. So if someone is used to their viewer being in a dark mode, it would pop up with the dark mode. You can have these be exactly the same. You could choose to not include that functionality. Totally up to you. Another thing worth mentioning is how to add more pages to your website. All you have is bones here. So what else would you like to do? I want to stop and caution and say that you can waste so much of your time if you don't think about what you want your website to look like before you start doing some of this stuff. So do yourself a favor and spend like a half an hour viewing some of these Quarto websites or other academic websites and see what you like about it and what you would like these individual pages to say for you. If, for example, here, this is Ted Ladaris' personal blog or teaching blog, and this is showing us an example of how we can add new pages. Ted's website has a teaching-R and a teaching-Python where you can learn about all the different things that Ted is teaching about. And super fun here, demonstrating the point that these individual pages on your website don't have to be Quarto pages. So if you already use Jupyter Notebook documents, or if you already use plenty of our Markdown documents to maybe share teaching materials, or you've had blog posts on a historical website, you can move those over into your Quarto website fairly easily. And for example, here, notebook.ipymb can be a notebook that was shared elsewhere previously and turned into a post, for example, on your website. So more on this, letting your source code create the output with including multiple documentation here. What is next? The last thing I wanted to mention, give it a few minutes, still not deploying here. Oh, got a couple though. Okay, last thing I wanted to mention is that not every page on your website need to be a static Quarto document. You can also create a page on your website that is nested blog posts within a page. And we'll show you an example on that on Sam Chick's website again. But what you can follow a couple steps here that now, okay, so Jessica's showing you here. So the posts.qmd page on Sam Chick's website is this scrollable Quarto document, but each of these individual posts, if they get clicked on further, are individual QMD documents that have a whole blog post in them. Jessica's showing you one here that is saying exactly what I am saying right now. It's a little meta example. This blog post tell you how to add the blog to your website. So that's that gets created with YAML files and Quarto files, and they become nested in a structure, and you use the the YAML files to orchestrate which posts belong in the blog. And if you choose to want to use a blog page at all, what you'll add to your YAML header is this chunk of code, which is that you are making that Quarto page a listing of other pages. So for example, if we wanted a page on our website called research, we would create a directory called research and put all of our different research projects inside of that as separate QMD documents. And then we would tell the overall YAML file that everything inside research should be listed together. And that is a little bit more advanced concept with these websites, but you'll find as you decide what works for you and what doesn't, that sometimes having a blog post instead of a static page as one of your website pages can be really helpful, especially if you're using it as maybe a research page or sharing things that will have a lot of information nested within one page. And with that, I think we have demonstrated a lot of the most important points of getting these Quarto websites built and hosted. Jessica, did you have further comments on this page?
No, I don't have a blog, so this is news to me. And I'll be interested in seeing how this works. But I hope you guys, if nothing else, I mean, I hope you guys walk away today with an actual bare bones Quarto website on GitHub pages, as we promised in our advertisement. But if you fall, if there was an issue that arose, we're here to help. Heidi belongs to the Data Science Institute. They have office hours in person on campus every Monday. My group, CCT Data Science, you can find me and Eric every Tuesday morning on our drop-in hours. And maybe someone can drop those links into the chat. But I hope that if nothing else from today, you get this idea of how this Quarto is working, how it's a little bit different from R Markdown, how it takes these pieces, and also, which something that remained very opaque to me in the old kind of R Markdown blog down way, is just how it's orchestrated. Like there's a YAML that orchestrates everything. You have a couple of pages. Those pages can be nested to be blog posts, but it's all kind of variations on a theme. And then it renders all into this docs folder. And that docs folder has the HTML that GitHub expects to make a web page. And so just how those pieces come together, I just personally found that confusing. There was like a lot of words like that I didn't know, like YAML and CSS and all these things, rendering, hosting. I didn't really know the difference between them. I hope that this conceptually is that we were able to present it in a more straightforward way. Although, and I do apologize also that GitHub and Git were our barriers. Of course, if you want a free website on GitHub, you do have to play with GitHub. But there are multiple ways to do that. Eric in the breakout room 1 I believe showed to use this package. So that's if you're more comfortable in R, that's great. If you're more comfortable on the command line, I showed some kind of command line Git as well. And what we didn't show, I think, was the pane, or maybe Eric showed that too, the Git pane on the upper right-hand side in RStudio. Basically, there's also GitHub Desktop. Basically, I think the pain of a lot of these new technologies is that there's multiple ways to do the same thing, and that as novice learners, it can be hard to make informed choices when you're presented with all of those options. But hopefully, we can serve to help as tour guides a little bit of which choice that you might wish to take. And so with that, I think, let's see, what's the last slide? Oh, it's super cute. Go forth in Quarto. Please don't be a stranger. I know not everyone was able to successfully deploy their page, so come to office hours, come to drop-in hours for help. And we'll follow up with the recording, and we'll follow up, and you guys have this web page, the repo page that has a lot of these links that you may or may not find helpful to borrow from. So thank you all. And yeah, stick around and chat.
Thank you. This was really awesome.
I'm so glad.
Did Ryan say that the one person who doesn't have a website posted? Oh no. Is it still a 404 error?
Yeah, still.
Bummer.
Whatever. We'll figure it out.
The only thing I can think of is maybe in the settings,